Well, thank you, everyone. Let's begin our meeting. I'm going to put Chair's remarks right at the beginning, which was to say thank you to Rob Forbes. Rob sent me an email to resign from the commission because he's too busy. So thank you to Rob for all the work that he's put in. He's one of the original members of the commission, I think, and he's been working with us through all of this stuff since we first formed. So thank you to Rob. I did try to impress upon him that he ought to nominate a new member from New Zealand Archives. I think we have Andrew, but Andrew is often able to come and we need some more representation from those guys. So that's that. Should we send them a letter or
the letter comes from the council? Okay. So staff would notify.
Right.
Actually, I think it was already on the last council agenda.
Right. Very good. So approval of the agenda. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the agenda? Are there any additions or changes?
Move approval.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favour? That's great. And the minutes of the last meeting. I think I should answer. Do you mind taking over for a minute? It's my kids are at home alone, so and I know I'm in meetings, so they really shouldn't be calling. Right, so I better check in case they have something. I won't be going.
Yeah. And the iPhone barks, then we have to recess for a while.
And we've lost our quorum.
We've lost our quorum. Yeah. Okay, so adoption, we were at approval of the agenda. There are no late items that I'm aware of.
Nope,
Nope.
we approved the agenda.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a typo on the action item.
Oh, we're doing minutes. Sorry about that.
They're kind of attached to the minutes,
Fine.
aren't they?
Okay,
Yeah.
Melissa's back.
So you saw a typo?
Well, just under the USS, the Maritime Museum, I think it's a font of the font, it's not fund.
That sounds right. Whereabouts?
Oh, under item September 12, 2019, I just noticed it. Item 2, Melissa Harrison, follow up with Rob Forbes and Peter Baysmore to take forward USSC Fawn. I'm assuming Rob Forbes still wants to help out with that. Maybe we should check on that.
So, I don't have a minute.
Fawn.
It should be F-O.
Bowen. It's not a fund, it's a fawn.
Yeah.
That's an archival thing.
And there's a correct spelling under the action item.
Action items.
Where are you looking?
Talking to the funds, should.
Font.
No, fonts. F-O-N.
F-O-N.
Oh,
Oh, it
okay.
is
And
fonts.
the
No,
number .2 in the first.
Oh yeah, but it's okay on the May 7th, it's not okay on the September 12th,
Okay.
F-O-N-D.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, we can update that. As amended?
I don't exactly know what it means, but it basically means archive.
Papers, right,
Yeah.
yeah, archive material.
Yeah, bunch of stuff.
In an archive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can,
It's gonna come in a box.
yeah. So motion to approve the minutes,
Thank you.
as amended.
Second, thank you, Peter. And all in favour? Thank you very much. Public comments. Review the action items, which usually should helpfully list, but they're not helpfully listed. Could somebody who has the minutes think of this?
Right here, I think I can get
Oh,
that.
thank you.
That'd be helpful.
I don't, it goes through.
So the first
Oh,
one
it's
is
at the back?
Yes, back when
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
First one's fine, and I still haven't had any word back from Kathy Dunster, and I have been, I sent her another email today, or Facebook thing. So, those are the only other records that I can think of that are, unless we start going into the Islands Trust or the archives of the Victoria, which I have no idea how to start going about that. But, so, she has a file in addition to what the Grescos had.
Right.
And she said it was more complete, and she had more correspondence, and that her materials are in a file box someplace in Vancouver. She's working in Iowa, I think, at Cortland. And so she will just keep working.
Right. Is there any way you can support that? Is there anything we can do?
I don't think so.
No.
I
Not that I
wonder,
can think of.
well, two things. I wonder if it might be helpful to ask Sue Ellen. You know, she's one of the vice chairs of the Islands Trust, and she might be able to help provide access. And then the other thing is that Andrea Raymond was working on a leave-in project, and I don't know if she might have something related to this, but you know, just a quick email to her or
Okay,
message might help.
I got hold of her, when did we first start, when did Dave Pollard start working on this? Maybe 4 years ago? So, before she got the job that she's working at now in terms of training downtown. So she was on island, and she had tried to pull together some ideas to, I think, write some sort of a play. I've asked, years ago I asked for her file, and she didn't think that she had anything, and whatever she did have, she'd given to the Arts Council.
Okay. So, dead end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was recently something on Facebook with Kirsten Degner has started a woodland journal, and she's somehow or other heard about Lebanon and has taken a walk out there. And so she's put an entry on Facebook in terms of that they found the trail and they went down and had a look, and she's really fascinated by the story of Lebanon and all the artists that were involved, and she went to the historians and got a whole bunch of information from them. So she's written a sort of a storyline kind of thing on Lebanon, and I sent that to, forwarded that to Dave Pollard. I can forward it to, is everybody else on Facebook?
I don't think so.
For the Carol, she's on Facebook.
Okay, but that's the most recent thing. It's not anything to do with efforts to obtain heritage status. But
Can I ask a question? How useful is this ultimately? I mean, or should we just be approaching it from the perspective of this is something that we're interested in, and step one is to get it on our heritage registry? I mean, is there value?
In Judy pursuing this further?
Do you think there is? It's a real question.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it is helpful, like it's a heritage activity for the community, and we have a role here as a kind of coordinating group, pulling together heritage people on the island. So I guess the Arts Council is doing their thing. And this kind of contributes to that from a slightly different angle. I don't know, what do you think, Judy?
I think maybe having a complete file somewhere
Yeah.
is important, and to pull in and have access to whatever, and they made some considerable efforts and some headway in 2000. And if we do get heritage registered, and it's on, I think that's our role in terms of making sure that it's part of the heritage register, and that's never going to hurt, and it's probably going to help. And whether it becomes national, whether it becomes, whether it's handed over, I think we have to have other discussions separate from the register in terms of whether or not we try to get it out of Crown land and somehow have it better protected than just part of the big Crown land map. So,
So you see it worthwhile to continue with this
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily, I haven't thought it through in terms of whether it's a function of this commission. I think that Lebanon generally is, and this was trying to just give us that background so that we can have a full discussion at some point.
Peter?
It may be that the documents related to early efforts could include research documentation and things we don't know about. So I hate to not turn that rock over to see what might be there. And I guess just to find out, you know, there may be messages about where the issues or roadblocks might have been at the time as well. So I think, from my point of view, more information is usually better than less, as long as it's not a pain in the ass trying to get it.
Yeah. All right, let's march through the rest of this list. Can I just say that Rob and I have not done anything on the Maritime Museum. I see that's in the May 7th, and it's also in the September one as well. And it also apparently, Peter, you agreed to do something.
I said I'd help.
No memory.
I said I would help with muscles in a vehicle if needed, because we only live 2 blocks away.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but you know, I'm waiting. I'm ready and waiting, basically.
I was in a file. Ours is like in the future, a day in the future when I have less things to do.
Yeah. And reasonable notice.
Yeah. Well, with the heritage, with this consultation coming up, I'm not even going to pretend that I'm going to try and do this in the next few months. I think this is like something to revisit in the spring, so we can keep it on the list. But we don't need it on May 7th and in September 12th. So one of those can go. Okay, Councillor Nixon discussed the amount of family plaque, municipal land with the plan.
I'm trying to remember, this is so long ago now. There was some discussion.
Yeah.
And I think the gist of it was that it needed to be part of a larger discussion of heritage commemoration.
Yeah.
And to do just the one may not have made sense. There was the next point, the initiated inclusion of the family site on the heritage trail. That was part of it. I don't know.
Yes.
Did that go in?
Yeah. So I wonder, Rob was going to look for photos. I imagine, I don't know if he's done that. I'm wondering if we should start a list of places that could have plaques, heritage plaques, and then file it under that. So for the next meeting, for an agenda item for the next meeting, we'll start the list of, well, we could even start one now. Can we do that? Do we have the power?
I don't see why not. I mean, and that sort of consolidates those 3 points.
Yeah.
And I remember, Maureen, you had, I think you were going to follow up on the idea of a municipal design that would be a heritage plaque design, but would fit into the municipality's other branding, and that would be something then that we would use on all sites.
So this could be part of the consultation, like this, science heritage plaques could be a list that we maintain, and at the end of the heritage consultation, we should have more clarity about that, and council should have more clarity about it, and then we can put that together.
So I would delete those action items, and as an action item for this meeting, just indicate establish a list of potential heritage sites to be commemorated by signage. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
And maybe just note in parentheses, Yamada site.
Yeah.
I was down there, and so was Jennifer. The Francis Walk project, the home, it's essentially in that area where the Yamada family lived.
So is this an action item, or do we just start a list?
I think putting it as an action item would be helpful.
Okay.
So that was to establish a list of potential heritage sites by signage?
For signage.
And then this action item 3, that could be part of that when we get to the point of actually going forward with signs, then we can ask for their contact details for that.
Yeah.
All right, September. Number 1 is done. Number 2, we've already discussed. Number 3, I did.
Number 1 is here. Here's your book.
And number 4, keep your eyes open for engaging visuals. Okay, that period is over. So all of those can be removed.
No, number 4 needs to be retained. That's actually Heritage Week 2020.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That should be
So the date should say
2020.
2020.
Yes, and that's actually a bit of a priority because we want to make sure that by the time we get to Heritage Week that Sophie has a significant bank of material that she can use for municipal notices.
Yeah. Okay. Was that all clear? So I think we, so Judy's item 1 we will retain. Number 2,
This is back to the 27th, yeah.
how can I backburn that? I don't want to lose it.
It's repeated in September.
It is, so okay, let's scratch to
Start a new category and just say future actions.
future actions,
Yeah.
okay, future actions. Does that sound okay to
So
you?
since that was up on the 7th, would we keep that and just indicate it as future action?
Okay.
And remove the one?
Oh, yeah, yeah. All of the June ones we have dealt with.
Okay.
And then September,
The first one's done.
the first, all 3 are done.
Okay.
Well, 2 isn't done, but we've discussed that. And then 4 is the one that we will retain.
So number 2 was the future action?
Yes.
Okay. So removing 2, is it here?
Yes.
So number 3,
Is done.
before we retain.
Yes.
And change to 2020.
Yes.
Thank you so
It's
much.
funds with an S. Now I know.
Oh,
Thank you.
Z.
On the,
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Our inaction list. I've done it. Okay. Business arising from minutes. So one of the most important thing that I want to get done this week is we're launching our heritage engagement plan, and Jennifer has brought lots of things to show us, including the website and other materials for us to look at, especially you guys, because Maureen and I have been speaking to her already, so it was really important to us to get other eyes on it. Take it away.
Yeah. I hope you didn't oversell me too much. I don't have that much material. But mostly, we just need to discuss all of these various topics. For item C, I do have an example sheet, but for the rest, I do not. So I don't think it will take as much as an hour for all of these items, but we shall see. So the first one is, it was supposed to be a review of the material that was indicated for our municipal website, but no material was indicated, so I need material indicated. So I don't have anything to show. But basically, all that's needed there really is to go through the phase 1 material and just say, put this section in, put this section in. Unless you want something rewritten, but we already have that text, so we can just use it.
So this is repurposing material from the report that we had for the workshop.
Yeah. What, the phase 1 report that was given to council and they accepted.
Right. So I just want to say, don't undersell yourself. We had the 3 of us had a meeting just to go over some of this material, and Jennifer has done a ton of work in consultation with some members of the community. So I came away from that meeting feeling really confident that we were in good hands going forward, but that the commission was probably going to have to step up a little bit more in providing feedback on things, and that's why we decided to call this meeting today. So if you have not been provided with a list of material that the commission feels is worthwhile from that from the report that was discussed at our workshop, I wonder if it might be useful for us now to spend 10 minutes just taking a look at the workshop report again, and as part of the work in this meeting,
Yeah.
because we're together,
Yeah.
and Jennifer needs to be leaving here with something concrete.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just flag what we would like to see on the website. That sound okay?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Does it make sense to do that now, or should we go through the other items first?
It
What do
might
you
make
think,
sense to
Jennifer?
understand the purpose of the website by going through the rest.
That
Yes,
sounds-
that's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
and then we swing around back at the end and put the phase one material up on the screen, I guess.
Okay.
And then we can just quickly scan through that. I imagine everybody's fairly familiar with it anyway, or will be as soon as it comes back up. Okay.
Okay, but so the idea there is that on the municipal website, there will be a page dedicated to heritage that we can update as we choose, and put on there whatever we like.
This is like number of the municipal page explaining the elements of heritage planning. Is that what this animal? Yeah.
Okay, then the launch event, do you want me to keep going, or?
Mhm.
Okay. So, the launch event would be announcing the beginning of the engagement for the Heritage Strategic Plan. And we had originally discussed in the work plan is a series of launch events, but it seemed that we didn't quite have the manpower to do a series. So we thought maybe instead we should focus on one larger launch event, see if we can get a lot of focus on that. And that might be a better use for our resources. So we need to decide on where and when we'd like to do this launch event and what would be the best. I assume that we still are interested in kind of combining it with some other event so that we're building on people that are already there for that other event. And then having people commit to attending the launch event, and then I need direction as to what you would like at that launch event. So it's kind of similar to the website issue. But I think it's good to discuss that after the website. Okay, so let me show you what I have for online engagement, because there's some stuff actually to see, and it'll give you an idea of the kind of engagement that we can do. So can you put up this website? So the idea here is that we would direct people to come to this website, which has an interactive element to it, so that the public can take part in the Heritage Strategic Planning process.
I love the URL. Citizen Lab?
Yeah, Citizen Lab, so to give you the full background, Citizen Lab provides this service, and I have negotiated with them an amazing deal with no startup fee, and that is within our budget for engagement for heritage for these 3 months until mid-Feb. So it's the reason why I was able to get such a good deal is because it's also serving sort of as a pilot in case the municipality is liking this engagement system. We could then continue with it at a different rate. So you can kind of bear that in mind, but that's neither here nor there for us. So for our purposes, I have set up some initial things, and I can explain to you what is flexible and what is not based on my experiences having set this up. So maybe Melissa, so that Tyler can take notes, would you like to create a user and see what the center experience is like? So what you'll be seeing on the screen is what anyone would see when they load this page. So you could do this now in theory on your computer.
I immediately like the look of the landing page.
Yeah.
And it doesn't like prejudge what heritage is. It's the code.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
These are just pictures that I have.
Yeah, well, it's good. I think it works.
Yeah.
Mostly that I have taken or that I have access to.
Okay.
Yeah, so go ahead and sign
And
up.
it's not busy,
Yeah.
thank goodness. I've had so much busy, but.
Oh, okay. Should I just do myself?
Please, if you're comfortable. And if you choose that you do like this, then they will add, they just weren't willing to do it until I was ready to sign the contract. They will add a Google and a Facebook single sign-on. So a person can choose to do what Melissa's doing now, or they can just click the Google or Facebook button and go in like that without needing to put new information.
So are these the areas that are used in the emergency planning? But how
Those
did
are
you
just the
determine-
neighborhoods.
But how did you determine the names of the neighborhoods?
in the drop
I
down.
have a map of neighborhoods on Bowen, so I type them in according to that map.
Okay, so it's the step that Anna developed for emergency and transportation planning.
I don't know what it was developed for, but it's like the map that goes in the office that has the
That's right.
neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can totally adjust those.
No,
And then
don't.
did you see the resident type stuff? Just can you hold that one down, Melissa, so they can see what it is?
This one is
The one above.
It is the same.
Yeah, so these are all things that I just put in because I thought they'd be useful. So whether you're a full-time resident, seasonal, occasional, regular visitor, or you work on Bowen but don't live here.
Can you put weekender in there?
Yes. Do you think that's different from occasional?
Well, I would
It's not
consider myself
seasonal.
more than occasional as a
Yeah.
weekender.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
There are lots of people who work in the city and have a pad in the city, and obviously people who bought both of their properties before.
And part of this is I'm thinking for the future, if we want to use this for other types of engagement, it could be useful to know.
Yeah.
But there are lots of people who live here on the weekend. Maybe part-time resident?
Yeah, we often use part-time.
Part-time.
We might have
Part-time
to,
instead of
the second one?
No,
Oh, replace seasonal with part-time.
Yeah.
Well, did you have to replace it, or can you just?
Well,
I can also add it,
Yeah.
No,
Seasonal.
I'd replace it.
but we don't want to have too many categories.
Yeah.
Full-time, part-time, lose the
So
seasonal.
replace-
Okay, so this
seasonal.
one is a bit, I don't understand what it's asking me. It says ownership,
Yeah.
a car on going,
That's
road
weird.
to virtual business, undeveloped land.
What is the point of this?
The idea here was that oftentimes you want to know if when people are putting their opinions on certain things, not so much of heritage, but with other things, particularly like you might want to know if they're a business owner, if we're gathering input on a bylaw, for example, or if they're a homeowner, or if they're a renter. If there's a bylaw related to boats or something, or then you might want to know, is this person a boat owner? I just threw it on there for interest.
It doesn't make
but we can
sense to
take it out.
me for this particular engagement, so I'd lose the category altogether.
What category is? I can't read what the category is.
It just says ownership.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Right.
now that's gonna confuse.
Okay.
Gender, there you go. How old can you be?
How old?
How old can you
That
be?
goes through there automatically, so.
Very old.
Yeah.
Okay.
That even covers wrong.
And how young does it go, since we're looking at that?
Only 2007, that's 13.
Do you want to be more inclusive?
You know,
I guess a parent might help
yeah,
their child.
yeah, and we got some pretty precocious kids over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna be something I can change.
Yeah.
Well, I can take it out and then add another,
Yeah.
add our own.
But, I mean, there's also the question of why do you collect that information and does it matter? Because we're connecting this with a particular sign-on. So Melissa's date or year of birth is going to be recorded in the system, and
Yes.
I
Well, the
don't know.
reason is because if we do this and we find out that we've only reached people under 30, or if it's like mostly young people, then we
Right.
know, oh, we need to reach out, so maybe we should go to the
That's a
seniors
good-
place and talk to those people. That's
That's a
why.
good
It's
point.
not so that we can
Basic demographic.
know how
Yeah.
old Melissa is.
So you might,
It's for
you
statistics.
might want to put in a caveat there though, about,
Yes, but I don't believe that I can.
okay.
so there may be.
There's another.
But you can also skip all of those things, and then whenever you log in, it just reminds you, please complete your profile. So we can also make all of them optional if you feel like people will be uncomfortable with certain ones, like your birth I made optional because I think oftentimes people don't like that. We can also replace it, instead of your birth, it could be like age with decade options or something, so if they're just
Oh, yeah, like
doing categories.
41 to whatever.
Can we go back to the neighborhoods? Judy's question was, let's just take a look at what they are.
Well, if there is another list that's been done for emergency transportation, then I think this should coincide with that.
Yeah,
So it's just a quick double check.
yeah, I think it
it's-
does.
One thing that might be nice to know is how long people have lived on Bowen.
That's, yeah, same.
Whether
same.
you can be counted as heritage yourself.
Well, I mean, I had avoided that question because I feel like
Yeah.
for people who have not been here for a long time, they might feel like, oh, is my opinion on heritage count less or something like that.
I agree that
So
with
I'm
that
not
caution,
sure if
and I'm
it's-
not sure
I think we should collect that. Even if people do have that response, I think it's actually useful in terms of the project that we're working on. If we're getting a lot of response, again, from people who have lived here for 30 years or more and nothing, from people who've been here for 2 or 3 years.
Or vice
That's
versa.
actually important. Exactly.
Yeah.
Should I sign up now?
It's-
The only problem with asking that question is not always a straightforward answer. You know, people, maybe they had a cabin here for a long time and then they moved here and might have moved off for a while, you know, so it's not always, oh, you know, 12
Sure.
years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's also true of pretty much any question.
I'm gonna hit sign up.
There's always
Okay, sign up.
Didn't like it.
I think you're signed up, it has your name.
Oh. No.
Try clicking home. No, it did not work. Interesting.
So now I.
It says you're there.
It may be because I have to verify it. Because you might have a pop-up blocker there. Sometimes it's like saying, you need to check your email for a verification.
Right.
So let me see if I have you here as a user that's unverified. And you can check your email too. No, nope, I don't have you here. Maybe that click just didn't go through. I have had other people sign up in the office,
You're signed in.
even
It's-
without a VIMVC.
It's got your name and it says sign out, so you're in there.
I think this is the second step of the sign-up process. So you gave your name and your email address, but this is asking for additional information.
It says almost there, so I guess you still have to sign up. You're not there yet.
Maybe were there some mandatory ones you didn't do?
Do it again.
Just try it one more time.
I wonder if we should do it for Brazos.
And then I think you have to click sign in to complete the registration.
I can also take off some of those as we go.
We should make sexual preference mandatory.
Okay, you're in.
Oh, maybe it made me answer a question that I didn't answer last time, I think, which was the ownership question, which might be a problem.
Oh, you didn't answer, yeah. Well, that's because I had it as mandatory to begin with.
So now I'm going to
Okay, now I've taken it off. So if you reload it, it should be there.
Okay.
So the survey.
Okay, so this is the home page now, is that where you are? Okay, so what I have created for the time being is 2 projects. One is a survey, and one is a place where you can, it says poster ideas. This projector just has a very low quality. The reason for that is because that allows us to do both at the same time. So try clicking.
Is that it?
So here we choose an image. I've just picked random things basically for images, and they scroll down. So the survey page allows us to use any kind of Google survey answers, questions and answers. So you just make it there, and then it embeds it in the website. So I just made up a question so you can see what that looks like. But it allows all the variability that a Google survey allows. And that's also free.
Is it anonymous?
Well, it's connected to your sign-in.
Okay.
So if your email is anonymous and your name is anonymous, then it is. And then click you scroll down a bit. You see the timeline there in the middle of the page?
Yeah.
So just click the second part of that. Yeah. So I put in dates for each of these, and when you're not at that date yet, which we are not yet because we're currently in survey open, at survey results release, there will be information there once that date has occurred.
of what the survey, the outcomes of the survey?
I believe it will be whatever we tell it to be. So we have to tell it what exactly we want to say in there. Okay, and then either go to home or projects and click the other
May I
button.
just ask a question? With the survey open and the question that you asked, how would the results be reported on that? Is it just the number of people who responded with a particular response?
Well, why don't you go ahead and answer a question, and then I'll look on my backside and tell you.
Yeah, and I know this is very preliminary.
Yeah, so try that. Okay, so then let me look here in projects. Did you submit it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it said submit another response.
And you can put in the usual information around, this will take you X number of minutes to complete, and any reporting out would be aggregate data and all that sort of stuff.
Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to. Heritage survey.
What happens when they click on I have other priorities?
Before
Does it
you
get-
apply? That's what I clicked.
Like, you know, they might say, you know, I'm worried about, I don't know,
Climate change.
or something, you know, and so is there somewhere that they can actually type in a box what those other priorities are?
Yeah, just like in a Google
Open-ended?
survey, you can have open-ended boxes, but not in the same question, so that would be the next question.
Okay,
So
so we
you can't
don't,
mix boxes with
Oh,
a
okay.
response like that, so I can't
Okay.
do like other and then let them type. So looking on here, it appears that because this is an embedded survey, it does not compile it here, but on Google survey it does. So it would have all the same stuff that Google survey does, where it tells you how the people have responded. But I'm not sure whether that would connect it to the person or not.
Maybe
Because
we
I don't know
we
that
essentially
Google
don't
knows.
want it to connect to the person for survey data.
You want to connect to.
Well, I mean, all surveys do connect to
Demographic.
the person if it's anonymized later.
Not necessarily, but, I mean, the bottom line is we don't want information about individual respondents. We want information about aggregate responses.
Do we want to, well, I think I might be overthinking this really, but I'm just wondering if we want to be able to analyze the data, like people who lived here for a very long time really care about this thing, but people who have lived here only this many years care about this thing, or, I don't know, people who live in this area really like that.
so like
That's what
cross-referencing.
that looks like on Google survey. So it looks like it is not tied to her user.
People in,
If we did want to collect things like how long they've been on Bowen at the same time as this, we'd have to ask that question in that survey.
or, you know, like only 20 people value this particular signpost, but that's every single person who lives in that area. You know what I mean?
You could do that with SurveyMonkey, and I'm assuming you'd be able to do that with, partition the data.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, because I only have one question
Yeah.
tested in this one, but I think that I have another survey, but you will not have access to it now because they're not the right dates.
So it is,
But we can test that
yeah.
before we get too crazy about the
Yeah.
question.
So where do you need the commission's help? Is it in terms of figuring out what the questions are that should be asked?
Yeah, what are the questions? And I can help with like, you know, making sure that they're quote unquote good survey questions, but I need to know what you want to know. Because otherwise I don't know what it is. Okay, so here's the other project that she's on now, which is the Heritage Places and Stories. And we're currently in the story collection phase of this project. I just put in a bunch of phases so you can see what that looks like. Scroll just to the phases, yeah. So there's, can you click on the different ones because they're not visible on the projector? Public poll, survey, and results released. So click on the public poll one just so I can show what the difference is. Public poll is embedded in this system and it does tie to the user, but it only allows for these this type of question where you choose one answer. So she couldn't choose multiple answers on a poll. This is their survey, the embedded one. So for very basic stuff like, do you support a heritage strategy? Yes, no. That kind of thing, it works well. So if you want to answer that, I can look in here and see what kind of, oh, but you can't because I'm not in the right part of the timeline. So I can change the timeline dates and then let you answer that if you want to explore that. Okay, and then if you go to the first one, the story collection phase, which is the one I have us in now, it has a couple of locations that I have preloaded on there, so you can click on those flags on the map. You're just, I think, yeah. So you can thumbs up or thumbs down the idea of the Little Red Church being a heritage thing. You can make a comment on it, and you can click on see the full idea to see more.
So can you add a pin?
You can, yeah.
So that, okay.
And I can turn on
That's
or
good.
off that ability to add pins or not.
Comment.
Click on see the full idea. It's
I-
just saying there's 0 comments right now.
I think we want them to be able to add pins because it's part of the nomination. I like the way the banner for the stories piece says places and stories or places and events, because it ties the stories to a place. And otherwise you get a lot of feel-good stories about stuff that have really no focus on place, and which it's a nice feel-good, but you really want to kind of focus people's attention
Yeah,
on
and we have to
places.
choose whether we want it to be map-based or not. So in this case, I have said, yes, this is a map-based one. We can also turn that off, and then people are just putting up like ideas, and there's no map. So there's no like mix. You either have the map or you don't.
What's the other one? Is that Rosebank?
The one on the far left?
No,
Go ahead and
sorry,
get
the
on.
other two.
Where's the place
Senator,
So these are all just ones that I put up in super quick before this
Yeah.
meeting.
So how do you add?
So, did you see at the top where it said poster idea? Right there?
Yep.
Black.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that prompt, which comes up in a couple of spots, might need to be more specific, you know, the idea thing. I think we need another word.
Well, maybe it needs to be.
Yeah. I don't think it's
So
gonna
they're
let me
like-
change the text on that button, but in the information and stuff, we can encourage people to post.
Yeah.
Um,
It would be better if we could change the text on the button.
Yeah, I just don't think it does allow that in the system. It's not
So
a
then
thing.
you
So-
can do this.
So who did the additional text?
You mean that post your idea text?
Well, you said you can't change, or what was on the poster?
The button that says post your idea, I
Right.
believe that is fixed based on Citizen Labs templates.
Oh, I see, okay.
can we add a little, some sort of a prompt of exclamation in terms of if they wanted to add a place that is significant to them and they push that tab in the upper right corner?
cool.
So I have to explore what exactly is manipulatable, but there's an information tab that I put a bunch of text in, and in there we can talk more about what we're interested in. So there are spots for additional data. These topics are not editable. That's
That's a pity.
yeah, that's an advanced feature that we would have to pay a lot of money to get. That's one of the things they withhold. Unless you pay people.
It's still nice to have it though. You don't always get that there.
So if you put
And
pin in the
you
wrong.
see, you can share on Facebook or Twitter. So if you wanted, hey, everybody come and thumbs up Davy's Orchard, you can share it on Facebook and try to get more people to comment on it or support the one that you have proposed.
Possible to add photo or location also?
Yes, I don't know why you didn't see that option, because when I did it, I added a photo.
Can you edit once you
So,
post it?
Or maybe this is it.
no, that's to put it inside. Scroll down. Location
Oh,
image.
okay,
Yeah.
So there, the location's a little weird. You would type like what you would put into Google to find it, and unfortunately, it doesn't let you click on a map to place a thing, which is a bit of a problem on Bowen because we have a lot of things that are not quite at a real address.
Like leaving.
So yeah, so you would have to type in whatever you would put in Google to get as close to that, and then it uses Google to place it on the map.
So you can put in a GPS location then?
You can try it. But what I did was I open a new tab and I type in Google until I get a flag that I like, and then I just copy that and paste it.
So Sorry, so on the map, if you put a pin in the wrong location, what happens? Does it know it's in the wrong location? Because it doesn't know.
No, it won't know. It just knows whatever you've put. When I did the cenotaph, because it also doesn't have an address, I started by just putting it in Snub Cove, and I didn't like where the flag was, so then I Googled a better location, and I was able to edit that to put it closer to where the cenotaph actually is.
So we may want to edit as well.
A user can edit. I think administrators probably can, and
Okay.
the original poster probably can. But someone else could not edit. They couldn't say, oh, it's actually right here.
Right.
But they could put that in the comments. You know, hey, you should move this east a little bit or whatever.
Wish you would stop doing that, Todd.
What's the other flag on the west side? Oh, that's the place.
That's the West Side place. I just wanted to have something that was, you know, not something we've been talking about. I just got that rapidly from one of the parks people here.
I like this a lot.
Yeah, so then what it lets us do is, as people thumbs up the different things, we can have certain thresholds that move things from idea to proposal, if we want to do that, or we can just let the thumbs up be what they are, and it tracks how well people have done. So if we wanted to officially recognize all those places that got at least 10 thumbs ups or something in Heritage Week, we could do that. But it would be a good idea to say that pretty early on in the process so that people know. And then maybe a big award for most thumbs ups or something. Yeah. And then go ahead and click on the information just so they can see what's there.
I'd be inclined to not make commitments of that sort, because you could get a gang of 50 thumbing up something completely, and you don't want to commit that it's automatically.
Well, we can moderate all of these postings. So if someone puts up, you know, Bodie McBoat face, we can remove that as like a ridiculous post. So I have the power to remove particular postings or comments, and also particular users. And in the About section, there is a boilerplate text about what is appropriate and what is not appropriate and will be moderated out. And I also added something to that about more troll type behavior, because all they have there was like harassment behavior. So I also did more of a qualitative, like if it's off topic or is driving the thing off topic, we reserve the right to remove such postings.
Yeah. And we kind of want to make that part of the job as minimal as possible, so that you're not doing a lot of moderating.
Yes, and one of the questions that came about from our communications director was, is it possible to pre-moderate like you can on Facebook, where nothing shows up until it's been reviewed and okayed, and they do not allow that. So on this platform, things are posted first, and then you can choose to remove the post. And the reason for that is that they said that in their experience, if you don't do it that way, it erodes so much of the public trust that they won't use the platform.
Maureen, you mentioned ganging up.
Yeah.
Like, I guess a bunch of people have a certain agenda.
They want
Okay,
that
well,
cottage on the
it's like
roster.
it's like one of those things where your dotting exercises where people do that as well. So I guess that would be a judgment call on the part of the moderator.
Yeah. But also, I mean, people could do that, you know, and freely.
Tells us something.
It tells you something, but where I have a problem is that you don't make a commitment in advance, that if a certain level of interest is expressed in a particular site, that it automatically goes onto a heritage registry, because that's going to be subject to council review, it's going to be subject to commission review, and so on.
Right, but we could offer soft things, like we will name your project at Heritage Week. Like, these are the projects that got 50 votes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that, that are fun and
It's
people
more
can be proud
communication
of.
rather than recognition.
Yeah, without needing any kind of official
Yeah.
council thing.
Yeah.
So that can kind of help get people excited.
Is that a picture of the sewage?
Yes.
Okay.
Again,
the
these
edge
are
of the
just
park.
random photos that I had.
Our heritage sewage.
It's
We have
heritage.
control over all
It's
this.
the trail.
It's the lab.
It's a cosplay, it's
The
great.
cosplay.
It is great, it's very clean in terms of the design.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to go for like some kind of mix, but I only have pictures of certain things.
Yeah.
I think when the blog hit, I think many of the people who would have a couple contributions to make about have the place. It's pretty
Yeah.
simple to do.
Well, and if they can't figure out the location thing and that doesn't work, you still can post it, and then
Yes.
you can go in and edit it and add the
And
location.
at the locations, right.
And
Exactly.
so another question for you all is, what would you like me to pre-populate it with? Because I can put nothing and just let the public do, or I can do all the items that were on the register list and put those up with the descriptions and the photos to get people more excited about it, but then we're also kind of tainting the thing with a focus on those particular items. So, you know, we can put in whatever we like.
What do you
And
guys think?
also, I have the feature of, as a user, I can indicate you as a member of the Heritage Commission. And then you can, when you make your comments and things, I believe that is indicated that I'm a member of the Heritage Commission. So then those items that were placed by you would have that kind of weight associated.
So the question about pre-populating or moderately populating or non-populating,
I think pre-populate, otherwise there's nothing to look at.
I think take the registry, the draft registry, and just pop it all in.
So no more than the registry and also no less, essentially.
Yeah, because, I mean, I think we want those, I think there's consensus that we all want those items on a heritage
There's
registry.
a couple of things changing.
I'm a real fan of pre-populating as well, because people need their imagination stimulated,
Yeah.
otherwise like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
The other alternative would be to begin it with a Facebook campaign of making postings over a couple of weeks
Yeah.
that are like, what about this place? What about that place? Would you like to put your place
That's a good
on this
idea.
website? You know, on this date, we're going to open the website and you can start adding. What do you think? What are your memories of this site? Do you have anything to say? You can do it that way and see if that stimulates people to post. And if it doesn't, then you can just post all the things that were in the Facebook campaign.
So roll it out at 1 or 2 a day.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that we have this page open as soon as that starts, so that
Okay.
people don't have to, you know,
Yeah, 'cause-
remember to do it
Yeah,
later.
because they may never come back.
Mhm.
We may have a lot of people who visit once, and if there's not.
And we should have everything up, but then we can like feature a different site every day on Facebook.
Could be a work
share
in
a different one or
progress.
something.
What about
Is-
papers? Oh, sorry, Peter.
Will there be any other way of posting things for people who do have difficulty, or maybe they don't want to register?
So what we can do is like at events, we can post on people's behalf. So, you know, we could do that as part of a, yeah.
Can we have paper surveys? I know I'm
Yes,
really old
then
school, but there's a
someone
lot
would
of
need
people.
to
yeah.
take that and digitize it into here so that it has equal weight with the others, but we can totally do that.
Does it have to go into there, or could it be, could it be just all collated together later, or I guess you all want it, you all
Yeah,
want
it
it all?
could be, it's
like-
just that this allows people to comment on stuff.
Yeah.
If the survey is a
Yeah.
little different, then you don't really need it, but if people are suggesting places, I think it's helpful to say, this was submitted by so-and-so if they want their name on it.
But if somebody doesn't want to put their name and their demographics in, but they would like to see what we're talking about in terms of the inventory.
Yes, the whole site is visible without any logging in. You only have to log in if you want to comment or contribute material. And when you do log in, when you put your idea, you can also change your username at that time. And it says clearly, like, how do you want people to see your name? So you can log in as Melissa, but then make a comment as anonymous. So that's also possible. Now, we will know on the back end that that's who has done it, but the public will not know. Or maybe not we, but whomever has admin privileges.
With the island survey, what we've done is had hard copy versions of it at the library and at Municipal Hall, and then Sophie has either done it or managed getting things input. But the sort of assisted inputting thing, I think might be actually worth thinking about, you know, having a small event at Bowen Court where people have the opportunity to talk about stuff, but have somebody inputting on their behalf.
Or like the Legion lunches is
Yeah.
kind of a good one. You can just go table to table and say, hey, we're gathering these
Yeah.
things. Is there anything you'd like to share?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some people might just want to mention some place and say nothing more.
Yeah.
But they might just sort of say, you know, place B,
Yeah.
I put that, I don't want my name there, I don't want to tell any stories,
Yeah.
I don't want to, you know, I just but we want to know that they think that, and we, you know, if they say that, at least we can have a look and say, oh, someone thinks that's significant. I mean, maybe other people pick up on it and say, oh yeah, that's a good idea, you know. And I think there will be people who are technologically challenged or otherwise don't want to be out there. And I mean, it'd be nice if they can just send an email or write it on a piece of paper and drop it at the library or here. Or,
well, we can definitely put that on the website or on our mailers, that you can go to this website, but if that doesn't work for you, you can email your submissions. It just makes it more work for us to have to put it in, but there's no reason why we couldn't make that available.
And not everyone's going to come to an event, even if the event comes to them. You go to Bowen Court, some people are going to go to the activity room and they're going to participate in some art. But you know, there's a real, I mean, I don't even live full time on the island, but there's a real culture on the island of having papers or petitions or whatever on counters in businesses or at the library or whatever. And a lot of people just, oh yeah, I'll pick up one of those, take it home, fill it out and send it in. Or, you know, petitions, you know, recently there was a petition on fireworks all over the place on a lot of counters. And that's, you know, you really, you know, need to get to people where they are and where they habituate. And so I think we do need to think about how we can make input available to people as part of that regular day-to-day stuff, and you know, counters in the library and the stores and stuff. We may get more input.
Do you have any sense of what would constitute success as far as this is concerned? Would getting 100 respondents be a good thing? Or are we thinking 500 respondents?
I mean, if statistically you want to make some statement about the island, the rule of thumb is at least 2%.
And the other part is just to be able to say, it's a lot stronger to be able to say, we've come up with the strategic plan and we had 1,000 islanders participate as opposed to 20 did. So, you know.
2% is 80.
Yeah, about 70. Depends on what you consider the population to be.
Our ballpark has always been that it's not that we don't feel comfortable unless there's something like 300 to 600 respondents, and we generally get that. So my feeling is
10 to 20% then.
It's much more than 2%. My feeling is that if we got 80 respondents to this, that's simply not enough. And I would I don't know what the number really is, but I'd like us to have a sense as we go into this, how many people we would like to have involved in it.
And heritage does tend to be a fairly esoteric topic in my experience. So I think it's even more important to reach out and find as many ways for as many people to respond as possible. You know, some things are much broader interest for people. Anyway.
Additionally, when you're talking about things that you want, that what was it, 10%? Or did you say 600 responses? 300 to 600 responses. I mean, it depends what you're using that, what kind of decisions you're going to use that for, right?
Yeah. And what we're using this for is raising awareness, understanding of the legislative side of things, and that we actually really don't need to do much more because the legislation is there.
Yeah.
And
Well, and the input on what useful tools we can, you know, what would be useful to people to help them conserve heritage that they have control over, I guess.
so with the survey, we need to make sure that we've got that short list of bulleted points. These are what we want to get out of this.
And the survey can be an opportunity for education.
Yeah.
So in the survey questions that I gave as an example there, where I was like, what do you think of a heritage register? This is what a heritage register
Right.
is.
Yeah.
So then a person has, you know, some compelling reason to read the definition and then to apply it in answering the question.
Yeah.
So.
And probably like a resources area here. If you want to learn more
Yeah, in the information
is
section.
in the
I can also put it in the about, but typically the about section is about the whole engagement, but I can use it for that because we're only doing it for heritage. But when you click on information, yeah, that's where that would typically go. So I had put, you know, this bit. but it just depends on what we want to focus. So that's one thing that I really have no idea about what you would like, and that is, you know, what information are we trying to put out there, and what information are we trying to gather? So, you know, do we want people to vote on heritage values, or do we want to just suggest, like, here's the whole range of values, now vote on places? Or, you know, or what is it that we want people to engage with? And even within that, so if you go to the timeline, and we can also take off timeline if you don't want any timelines.
Rate things?
Well, you can thumbs up or thumbs down something.
So if you've got a list of 10, can you order them?
Yeah,
This is
so
the most
they can be
important
viewed
thing.
by most voted up, that kind of thing. So in story collection, okay, so scroll down from here, click on the cenotaph one. I just want to show something real quick about what to do with the cenotaph. Yeah, so then go to the more information on the cenotaph, see the flow of it. Okay, so if you scroll to the text, what I did there was I wrote, share your memories of the cenotaph in the comments below. And then I talk about what is the cenotaph and a couple of things about it. So, and I can make that text more bold and bigger and all those things. But so that one was kind of designed to, here is a place that probably a lot of people might have a story there and associated that they want to share. And so there the idea was, share your stories about the cenotaph here.
Can you embed video?
In that text, yes. In the comments, I'm not sure. Melissa, if you try to comment, what does it let you do?
No, just text.
Yeah, so it's just text-based comments. So that's the disadvantage to that approach, is that people are limited there. Now, what we can do instead is I can open up, outside of the map thing, we can have a whole other set of ideas where people can put up pictures and videos and have all kinds of flexibility. But then we may, it's a lot more disorganized, because this means that all the cenotaph stuff is all in one place together. On the other one, I would have to then combine it manually, and you know, then people might be confused, like, I want to vote for the cenotaph, where do I do that? That kind of thing. But maybe the voting isn't so important. If we're just building a registry and all we want to do is gather stories, then I can just put it in the ideation area. I think no matter what, it will still have a thumbs up, thumbs down option, but if you have 20 different cenotaphs, then people aren't, you know, that kind of changes the voting dynamics.
So Judy's question had to do with not just
Heritage values.
thumbs up and thumbs down, had to do with ranking. So if you had 10 things, are you able within the system to rank order them? That
Well, you
this
can
is
choose
most
how they're
important?
viewed as a user.
Mhm.
I don't think we choose that. So the user can choose, like, I want to see the ones with the most comments, or the ones with the most activity, most recent activity, or the most thumbs ups.
But as an individual user, could you look at 10 things and say, this matters most, this matters least? Okay, so it doesn't rank.
I have a question, actually two questions. One, is there somewhere where someone can just suggest a site that could go in the inventory, or at least be considered as part of this? Because you're asking in the map thing, you're asking about stories about places. Someone might not have a story or a memory to share, but is there somewhere they can, aside from the story or the memory, can say, do you know of a site that you think should be considered?
Yeah,
Or
so,
valued?
I mean, they could do it there, and we can change the title to be a bit more open to just naming places,
Mhm.
or we can separate the stories from the naming. So then the naming would be like a map-based thing, and then the stories could just be ideas absent a map. So we have those options.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to separate them. One is sort of building the registry, and the other is telling the story.
And there may be information about that we can pull together, because some of the stories might actually suggest a place that hasn't been mentioned in the list, and then we can
Yeah.
collect.
I mean, unfortunately, it
Yeah.
doesn't link the two things together. I wish it would. 'cause
But
that
we
would be
can't,
perfect,
but we can't, or the administrator can.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that's
we
a
can
place
do
that
it.
hasn't, yeah.
Post facto, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that just depends, like, if you want to do two things, one, we want to just gather up a bunch of things for the register that we may not have thought of, or, you know, something like that, and then the other is we want to gather stories, then that's probably the best way to do it, is to separate those.
What
And
would
on
you-
top of that, we want to survey people about their opinions on these things, and also use that as an educational tool, and we'll have 3 pieces. So another tool that we can put on here.
What are we planning to do with the stories once we've received them? is it kind of something we disseminate? Are we trying to glean values from those stories about what the people value, or is it just, or is it just enriching what we're doing?
Are we doing thematic analysis of all
Of what they're saying, or are they just standalone that, you know, yeah. Is it
Well,
feel
I guess
good, is it a feel good part of it with no
I guess we should
content?
keep them, because then if something happens about those places that, I mean, archives would want to know that stuff, and then also if it adds to something being added to the heritage register or inventory, then that's information that's relevant to that, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just asking the question really, because we're talking about wanting to glean heritage, what people value. And so one way of asking what they value is what places they value, and that's more of a list. The other telling the stories is a different way of getting at values, and it's a more, it's a more almost vision-based, you know, what does the community value generally, and that how does that help us understand what we should be doing? It's a more general thing. So both are maybe valid, but yeah, I guess Jennifer, when you were putting that section in, what were you thinking in terms of what we would get from the stories?
Well,
What
the
we
idea
use
there
it
was to
for.
make it more fun.
So it's
and
partly-
so it's partly an engagement thing.
Got it.
And plus you might get some more interesting things so that when you go to build your registry, you have more information backing that thing up. And it was also partly because we were thinking of the museum and archives as a partnership, and that they would then kind of own those stories that have been put forward. But it really depends on, I mean, it could go any way. I mean, I'm not sure that there's necessarily a value in having people choose what's on the registry. Necessarily. It could just be like, share all your heritage stories, and then those all go into like a back of house inventory. Or maybe we do want to say, is there public interest in a registry with private properties on it, or do we want to just stick to the public properties for now, and we'll worry about that later when people are comfortable. So, you know, it could be something where it's like, we want on our first phase, just do a survey and see what people think. And if people are like, whoa, I don't know about this registry thing, this is scary, and, you know, I'm afraid that it's going to need a bunch of controls, then maybe we don't want people voting on a registry. Then maybe we want to do the stories thing instead. Or, so, I mean, I think it could go any way, depending on what your priorities are, what you're trying to achieve.
I'm not sure about having people vote on the registry. I think we just want people to put forward ideas and
What they
comment
know.
on them. I mean, they can say it's a great idea or no, stupid idea or whatever. But I don't think we should say necessarily that something will go on a registry.
I agree.
If we do that, then people may be reluctant to nominate things that are on private land, for example. But someone who has something, maybe an owner of private has something on their own land that they'd like to at least mention as being of heritage value, and maybe there's good stories attached and all sorts of things, but they might not want that on registry just because they think it's something worth mentioning. And I think it's worth having that. So you don't want to
So
sort of
maybe
threaten
the-
people, oh, well, you mention that and your next thing it'll be on the registry. We could, you know, might maybe even want to say quite clearly, you know, what will go on the registry will be discussed, and
In the future.
there's no plan at this point to list anything on private property, but we'd certainly like to know about it if you want to mention it.
So as it's
Yeah.
written now, I don't mention the registry at all in the naming of places. It's only in the survey where it's like, what do you think of having a heritage registry? Do you
Yeah,
think it's
that's
a good
probably a
idea?
good
This is
idea.
what it
It's
is.
good.
Exactly.
Um,
So when we're asking people about places, we're just saying, what do you value at Bowen Island? What do you think is part of our heritage? Without any connection with a possible register or even inventory at this point, right?
Yeah, unless they see the survey question and they go,
Yeah.
oh, I know what this is really about, and then they get all, you know,
Yeah.
conspiracy theory, but
Yeah.
it's
But
not.
is it only, are we asking questions only about places?
Even in the materials that Jennifer posted, I think that lifted from Dawn, at least in terms of a register, it
Yeah.
has to.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
register, but
But we doesn't. I guess it doesn't have to,
Yeah.
especially for the archives, if it's stuff just about history, generally speaking.
Because, I mean, this, again, came from a place that, on the council side of things, it wasn't just about places. It was about ways of understanding the community, ways of working together. I think even today on Facebook, we've got a councillor asking questions about what is the Bowen way, or what does that actually mean? But still asking the question and getting a lot of responses to that. So, I mean, I think that that's a key question, whether this is getting solely at the tangible stuff, or whether it's also going to be addressing intangibles
Maybe
in some way.
one of the pre-populations could be GoFest, for example.
Yeah.
But if our objective is to try and introduce the whole concept of a register, then, you know, I think that's, and those are the 10 properties that we want to focus on. We're going to preload it. You know, if people start adding private property, and, you know, that creates potential for a whole other debate. But, you know, what's important to you and why, they can add it in, which would be, you know, interesting information for us. But what we're trying to do is set it up so that people understand that there is legislation, there is this plan, that, you know, we're trying to create a register. We're going to do the top 10 easiest, least controversial places. So, you know, that's the information that we want to disseminate to people.
But that's my question, is that all we want to do?
No, that's only part of it. I mean, in terms of what Don
But I
talked
think
about.
if we're asking for stories as well, so there's the places, and that's the whole thing about the register, then at least the 10 that we've got sorted out at this point, then you're going to get into you know, this character and that character and that, you know, that festival and this parade and that.
And is that wrong?
No.
You
But
mean
it's not on the register.
related to those? So do you mean
So it's part of the
stories
heritage
related to
tradition.
those? Do you mean stories related to those particular register items, or you mean stories in general?
Stories in general.
Okay.
There's places and stories.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's wide open, it's open-ended.
Yeah.
But, you know, in terms of understanding and introducing people to the idea of the register, that I think that we can be fairly clear in terms of.
I think we can be really clear on that, but I think where we also need clarity around are the other objectives of this exercise. So it needs to be clear to the participants in this that, you know, an outcome would be an inventory, a registry, draft registry, but also those stories that might not otherwise be captured, that have to do with aspects of life on Bowen Island that matter to people. You know, the frequency with which the stories around, you know, this storm and this year and endurance and neighbors and, I mean, you know, Ed Walkman's first response was the Bowen Way has to do with people helping people. And I think that may not always be the case, but it is a core value and a core myth of this community that is held dear. And how people understand and share that is an important function of this that goes over and above a list of buildings on a.
Yes.
Yep.
I think that the objectives of this, and we should, it's worth having this conversation, I think that the objectives of this are to raise the concept of heritage values and what heritage does the community value, what heritage values do we have? And the outcomes from that, hopefully, will be a register, inventory, a whole bunch of data about what people value, increased public awareness of heritage in the community. That part's really important. And hopefully some data about what would be helpful to people to conserve heritage. So I think there are it's quite a broad intention with a small budget and a small group of people who are trying to pull it off.
You know,
basically.
I agree. This council endorsed exercise is an opportunity. And it's a big tent. And it's an opportunity to do all of these things. It's an opportunity to document a whole bunch of what Bowen values are, and to use values these days in heritage registered thinking, deliberation, to get at what is valued about the actual places. So I think it's great. I think the one thing I will say is typically heritage commissions are mandated under the legislation to manage and deal with heritage registers and all of the stuff that go around it, which is, it's a very place-based legislation. So I worry if long-term the role of the commission got into scope creep and turned more into a historian commission rather than a place-based commission. I think that's important just to keep that focus in mind. But in this exercise, I say keep the tent wide. Just let's not filter it too soon. Let's let everything in.
Well, there's a bit of precedent for the kind of work we're doing here with the then Economic Development Commission, the work that Sherry Johnson and Ed Walkman did on businesses on Bowen Island. And they did a number of surveys of local business, of visitors and residents, and what they did with their stories, because that's their methodology. And we use that methodology in the Community Lands Workshop as well. They do essentially a thematic analysis. They come up with what comes up fairly regularly in the stories that are told. They do some simple analysis of frequency of terms and come up with word clouds and all that stuff. So there is that precedent in place, and kind of an expectation, I think, on council that some element of that sort of analysis would be done with storytelling, because it's been done before. The themes are pretty predictable. The language ends up being pretty predictable, but there are occasionally some lovely surprises that come out of this. And it's not that hard to do. I mean, a good reader, a decent scoring system, and word cloud analysis.
And we can do various phases as well. So as you can see, it has that timeline feature. So, we can start with story collection and then have an analysis and results phase, and then people can thumbs up the results to give you some legitimacy of like, these are the values that we saw, and that kind of thing. So you can have these like stages, and then it's like, okay, based on all that, here's the inventory, here's your final inventory, and these are the items we're suggesting for the register, and do a poll. Do you like, are you happy with this inventory process, or do you feel like we missed something? And then people can yes, no. And so you can do it in phases. The problem with that is that then you have to get people back to the website multiple times. So then I would focus on having their first visit be awesome so that they will come back. Or you try to do them simultaneously. So in one visit, they can vote on a register, but then I think it gets more confusing.
Would it be helpful if we all did some homework, went home, went on to bowenisland.citizenlab.co and looked around the site and checked it out and got back to you on what might be added or changed or tweaked or whatever?
Yes. I mean, what I really need is to know, do you want the timeline feature? What should be on it? What would happen at the different phases? What should be in information? So I need to know like what do you want all of these things? What kind of format do we pre-populate? What format do you want? Do you want me to focus on stories or focus on, should this be on the register? What do you think? That kind of thing. And just bearing in mind what are the things that are manipulatable and what are the things that are fixed. So, it's always going to have either timeline if I enable the timeline feature, or the adding events information. And then the events page, I just put the heritage link because it doesn't really have much there. And then in there you can choose map or not map. You can choose whether you want people to put up ideas or they can only comment on pre-populated ideas. And then I can do, several different projects that each have their own piece, whether they're a survey or not. But within one project, they can only do one type of engagement at a time, either a survey or putting up ideas or doing a map or whatever. So it would be nice for you guys to say, okay, we want 2 projects. One is the survey, one is the places on a map. And the places on a map will start with just collecting stories, and then we want to do show the results, and then we want to do register a vote, and then we'll show the results of that. So that's the kind of structure that I need to know.
And you were aiming for when to launch this?
Well, in our conversations, we had talked about early December.
Early December.
So that we could then have all of December and all of January as time for the public to interact, and then we would have early February to bring everything together so that we'd have something cool for Heritage Week to share. That was sort of what we had talked about informally, but.
I think it's great, Jennifer, that I do have concerns, because you mentioned, you know, do we want people to come back again and again? And that just made me think, it's asking a lot. There will be people who'll engage with us and really want to get involved, and oh, I see that we're on to the next step, and they'll come back again. But there are going to be lots of people who think, oh, I've done that. And I'd hate to think that it's necessary to go there more than once in order to have your full input, you know. I mean, I think it's always allow for people to say more, add things or get more involved and look at other parts. But I think you want a really easy way for people to say, oh, they're asking for stories, or they're asking for input into ideas of the Heritage Register. You know, I've got half an hour now, I'm going to do it.
I completely agree.
People, you know, I mean, a lot of people aren't that engaged with it. I mean, they might. I don't mean that they're not interested, but people get distracted.
Yeah, and
People
if
say,
that's
"Oh
the
no, I've done
concern,
that," and then they let it go.
Then I would recommend that we do something similar to what I have here, which is you have the map, you have the pre-populated locations, and you allow people to upload new locations right there. So it's all in one place. As soon as they come in, they'll see all the entries that have happened so far. It will start off populated. Anything somebody does is all in that same spot. So it's not like, I loaded up a thing, where is it? I want to vote on my, you know, this is my sister's thing that she put up there, and I can't find it because they're in the wrong project or whatever. Then I would just keep it all as much as possible in one project. And then really consider, do we need a survey? Is that really giving us anything? Or can we put it all in one interactive thing where you come in, you look at what's there, thumbs up, you put in any things you want to do, and then you're done. Just to keep it like as simple
in
as
some
possible.
respects, ideally you would get everybody engaged in the stories part of it and making their contributions, and then you would use that to form the survey, and then people respond to the survey. But I understand your concern that are people going to come back again, and people probably look at Facebook, everything else, like 20 million times a day, but will they look at anything else? I don't know.
Well, just think about how I am. I mean, you know, I can't think of how many things I've had to say to BC Ferries about, you know, the ferries, or about the ideas for Horseshoe Bay. But frankly, I couldn't tell you right now which surveys have answered, whether I've answered all the things they want. I have no intention to go back. If they send me an email, say, you know, please fill out this, I'd probably think, oh, didn't I do that? You know? And I'm actually quite interested.
Yeah.
And all the same, I mean, it's just, I think, so I do think we need to keep it, for those who want it simple at least, a simple way of engaging once off, and
So then we do have to have a survey in that.
In the initial. I think your warning is really, really good. And keeping it simple for all sorts of reasons, including increasing participation, because I think we'll get higher participation if there's a simple involvement that involves the potential for somebody to, you know, be more elaborate if they want to. I'm concerned about staff time because the staff commitment was expected to be modest, and there may be a lot more commitment if it's a super active site. I'm also concerned about December. I mean, December is 2 weeks from now, and it's December on Bowen is super busy. I think that it might be a bust if we launch it in December, and I think people are very overfed, non-alcoholic early January. That might be
I mean, if you choose to have it be like, what we want is for people to visit once and people to interact with all the things in one visit, then it might be better to do like an intensive 2 weeks in January. And then Heritage Week happens in February.
Yeah, that's a small
Well, I'm
engagement period though,
I'm going to
isn't it?
suggest that we have the launch in Heritage Week in February. It's, you know, in terms of all the building, and, you know, figuring out the questions and figuring out the site and figuring out, you know, I don't have time to work on this in the next month.
To
And
actually do the whole thing.
It's a busy time for us to review stuff.
to get people, I mean, we've got heritage, we've got a theme, we've got the newspaper, we've got posters from the province, we've got things on the radio, maybe things on television that have to do with Heritage Week. So that's when, okay, we've got
Yes,
this,
yeah.
we've got this survey, we want you to go on site and, you know, get the bumps and lumps out of it then, and that's the activity for most people during Heritage Week.
It's true, she's right. So what was what is the cost of doing that though? I mean, we blow our time,
During February?
yeah, of
Well, I
launching
mean-
and doing it in that.
It's totally possible, but it just means that you won't have, the results that you're presenting won't be during that time. So, like originally, when I had conceptualized it, had been in February, we'll show the results. And I was kind of thinking more incentive-based, like awards, or give some ribbons, or if we want to do plaques, like be a great time to give the plaques, or, you know, whatever. And so it was more of that kind of an event, but you could alternately have the Heritage Week be the engagement time. I think that is equally compelling. But then it's like, okay, what's the incentive to participate? And, you know, what's making it more fun than just going to a website and typing up your stories, like that's boring. So you need something to.
I think there's a lot of sort of native interest in heritage stuff that surfaces during Heritage Week. So it would be easier to get people interested in doing this. The kids are involved in heritage stuff, you know, during that period. And as Judy said, there is just all of that material that would be around. And it would be less stressful on us because I don't think any of us has a great deal of time, if any time,
Over Christmas.
to put into this in the next little while. And council.
But then I think it's gonna be a massive amount of time during that week.
It
Like, I
would
would
be.
clear your calendars,
Yeah,
because then what you wanna do is just be eating, sleeping, and breathing this whole
yeah.
thing you're in, super promote it, because you're asking people to, like,
Yeah.
everybody to do it right in that 1 week.
Yeah.
So, it's not necessarily less work, it's just
Well, could we do
concentrate.
it, could we do it like the week before, like use Heritage Week as a focus? We could do the week before, like the run up to Heritage Week and conclude it in Heritage Week or something like that. Still, there's still.
Yeah, you're still not gonna have results at that time, because you need.
Right. Okay.
But,
Yeah, you know.
but results for whom? I mean, if we do the engagement during Heritage Week, is the community going to be sitting on the edge wanting the results the following week? No. I mean, there could be some time to just sort of digest, make sense of what we've got. And I know it blows the schedule that was presented to council, but council's not going to care about that. They're going to care about doing it right, getting people involved, and having something lucid coming back to them. And I just think that the December is, well, I frankly know I'm not going to be able to put any time in the next little while. And Judy said the same.
And budget money carries over, so it's not an issue of going into another year. so.
Although the contract that I have agreed, well, I haven't agreed to it yet, but the contract that's been presented for the website goes until mid-Feb. So, because I was thinking we'd be done and then we'd be presenting. So I would need to renegotiate that. And hopefully.
So you can
maybe take some
defer it.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but part of the reason why I got a good deal is because it's piloting them in Canada. So if they have somebody else that's also willing to pilot it, they might lose the deal. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that is another factor.
Yeah.
Well, I would explain to them that, you know, in terms of us working collectively to build what we want for this survey and piloting it, that we need more time, right? So the other question I had was, while we're building this, is this group able to comment so that we can see each other's comments, or does it go through you as administrator?
Oh, it would show up immediately.
So that if we can,
Well,
go into it and say, my comment to the group is that, I need a better picture, or, I'd like to edit this section, and this is how I've edited it in terms of,
And I can
crossing
give you
out
editing privileges so that you can literally do it
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
telling somebody to
like
do
a
it. when they
document
do
where
it.
comments are down the side.
yeah. Okay, that sounds like a decision to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So what is the decision?
I think the decision is to defer the launch and have an intensive couple of weeks.
we're not actually deferring the launch. We have nowhere that it says such and such is the launch. So establish the launch.
Establish the launch, okay, establish the launch in February, and I guess that, I don't know.
Melissa, is this subject to Jennifer being able to renegotiate the
Yes.
deal on the site?
What are your concerns, is it subject to that?
I mean, I guess so, because if not, then we have to rediscuss everything, because it's all based on what this can provide. I mean, I could potentially find another website, or we could change the budget, or there are other options. But yeah, I would say so, but I can email him tomorrow, he's pretty responsive.
Okay.
We'd be asking probably for an extra month, I would think.
But would the committee be prepared to support that enough that we can sign the contract? Because that might help in the negotiations where it's like,
Oh, I think so.
we will sign, or, starting, I would just shift the start date so that it goes through maybe first week of March, just so we have some time. But it's still the same length of time.
I would support
And
that.
saying, in return, we're willing to sign it now so that you know that we are committed to it.
Right.
Yeah. So do we need to make a resolution on that, do you think? Is it sufficient weight that it needs a resolution?
What's the contract about? Cost?
Yeah, so I've negotiated, I had $400 in the online engagement budget of this, anticipating that we want some kind of online platform. And so they've agreed to 3 months with zero setup fee, zero fee for setting up the Google and the Facebook for that price, which is less than a third of what they want to charge. So it's a major deal.
I don't think we need a resolution. It's a small amount and it's
It's
working
in the
within the
budget.
existing budget.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think we do need a resolution around the timing of the event. I think that would make it into the minutes that go to council, and it would bring them into the loop. If they're wondering, when's this Heritage Engagement going to begin? When's it going to happen? It's going to happen during Heritage Week.
Okay. So would somebody care to make a resolution on that, would you, Maureen?
well, may I just interrupt quickly, because I'm realizing that we have not discussed items D, E, and F, and those items may change how you feel. Yeah, revisit A, B, and C. Sorry, everything's just connected, so it's really hard to make a decision in isolation. So is it okay if I move to those things? You're feeling a little
Sure.
disjointed conversation-wise, but I just want to skip it. Okay.
And we're really short of time.
But, yeah.
20
Me too,
minutes.
I told you guys I wasn't going to take as long as it said.
At least we're engaged.
You jinxed it.
I shouldn't have said that. Okay, so I just want to fill you in on the Indigenous engagement piece. So after our last meeting, Maureen and Melissa okayed me to speak with Pauline, who runs the Knowing Our Place thing, and then I also reached out to Lisa Wilcox, who's Islands Trust's person who speaks with the First Nations delegates. So to get their advice on what would be the best way to do an outreach program. So just kind of combining what they have said. So first, a quick, easy one, which is that tomorrow there's a tour of culturally modified trees that Chris Corrigan is leading. I know, Melissa, you have a conflict, but Maureen, were you able to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could other
So-
members of the commission attend if they wanted to?
Well, I mean, I could ask, but I would need to check first because it's like, she's running this tour, it's not my decision. So we'll be seeing those locations, we can take some pictures and have some idea for what that can look like as items on the register. So there's that small thing, and then she can also arrange a tour of the middens, and I think Sue Ellen will be leading that tour. And that might be an easier one to get a bigger group, I'm not sure. So anyway, so we'll be a bit more informed about those things. Lisa has a map that the Islands Trust has made that has the larger area with little dots where there are areas of First Nations heritage and interest, and it includes a tiny little Bowen with a bunch of tiny little dots. So when she comes on December 9th to meet with council members, she's doing like a council member training and awareness session. She's coming in advance to meet me with better maps. So hopefully I can get a better map of Bowen and where all those spots are.
They had a really good map when they did their Islands Trust meeting here, and they have that information somewhere.
Yeah, so I think
They're
that's
much
what
enlarged.
she said she has a printout, but she didn't have anything she could share with me digitally. So that's in terms of data. In terms of reaching out to different groups, the recommendation has been, in order to fit in culturally with how would be a good impression with First Nations peoples, would be to have a meal and invite people to come to the meal, and at that meal discuss heritage things, and that if we are interested in having a Squamish Nation or Tsleil-Waututh Nation be present at that meal, it would be better to hold it in North Vancouver. So it would be something the commission would be invited, and some councilors and that kind of thing, and we would have like a big meal that would be like nice, and you know, it's like a government to government sort of event. So that is a possibility. However, the warning has been that if we try to do that without having a pre-established relationship and a kind of a cultural plan, or like I forget what she calls it, an action plan for the relationship between Squamish Nation, Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and our governing body, that it could be like doing it in the wrong order and kind of going around in weird ways. However, getting one of those may end up that everything takes so long that it's just like, okay, well, I guess it's not going to be in the Heritage Strategic Plan. But that may happen anyway, because the timeline of decision making in First Nations can be very slow. So, you know, if we're open to slow decision making, then we have to realize that that could potentially happen. My main concern, though, is that if we find all these culturally modified trees, we find all these middens, and we have this data, and then we want to share that data and use it in our plans, it's really prudent to have permission from these other groups before we do so. So you kind of have the catch-22 of, if we don't say anything about it, then we're kind of ignoring Indigenous heritage. But if we do say something about it without permission, then we've done something that we don't have permission to do. So that's the...
I think probably what would be the appropriate thing to do would be to have a page or a section in the plan that speaks to what we are doing about that piece, right? And that it's a living document, and a living plan. So when that comes to its natural fruition, then it will be
Added.
in that place. Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing.
Bonnie faced similar challenges when she was putting together the Parks Plan. So there's a section in the Parks Plan that deals with First Nations, and it might be worth looking at and having a chat with Bonnie about how that was dealt with.
But I think that this might be something you may want to consider putting a resolution to council to open up to having some sort of statement about we want a relationship or something, so that we have at higher level something.
That's essentially in play already, and it's just taking the time that it needs for the nations involved. So I don't think council needs that message. We have that message. We know that it's something that's important, and it's just going to proceed at its own pace.
Has the council adopted a reconciliation statement?
If there's,
No, I don't recall that.
council is meeting with the council in Squamish or Tsleil-Waututh or at that level, right? And our council delegates heritage to this commission. As you know, this is a group of people that is working on that. Is there a similar sub-delegation to? Is there an elder? Is there somebody in the one of the local nations that deals with or has an interest in this heritage?
No, not that I'm aware of, but that's just simply means that I'm not aware.
Yeah, so I did ask Lisa about that, and that was kind of how the conversation went full circle. So at first she was like, oh yes, we can, you know, set up a thing and have you guys meet, and she was like, wait a minute, do we have a pre-established relationship between council and, you know, the Squamish official representatives? Because if you don't have that first, it would be similar to some other government, just reaching out to this commission and not to the council. So
we have had presentations both from the Islands Trust and from the Squamish Nation. The woman's surname was Rivers, I forget her first name. It was a couple of years ago, and there was an all-day event that was held, hosted by the Squamish Nation, where they invited councillors from all of the municipalities on the North Shore and Bowen Island, and that was the Squamish Nation kicking off developing stronger relationships with the municipalities, and it was very important that they take the initiative to invite us to be there. So that there are a number of other events coming up, and I mean, I think we're in as Lisa's pointed out, in complex territory, and it probably makes sense to follow the advice that you put forward, to just state that, you know, this is in process, rather than trying to push it too hard on the heritage angle, because there are a whole bunch of other perspectives that are important in the relationship with the Squamish Nation, not least of which is land.
well, and this is all separate from reaching out to people of Indigenous heritage on the island.
Yeah.
That we can do, because that's separate.
Well,
from
yes,
our
that's the other option.
So that we can also do. But also I think because Lisa is coming here on December 9th and is talking to council, you know, I think that questions about these kinds of relations can be made then. And then we also have a training coming up that several councils are going to. Is that one something that you're signing up for?
Yeah, that's Saturday.
Yeah, it's this weekend. And I'll also be there. And it's on government to government relationships between local governments and First Nations. So we might learn something there too about the best approach. And I'm not an expert on these kinds of things either. So yeah, so that was all the information that I got from, and both of the consultants, Pauline and Lisa, were kind of in lockstep about this, even separately. So it's a pretty good indication that that is the best practice. One other thing I did fail to mention is that Lisa said that this Lil'watuk Nation has quite a bit of data on heritage places from First Nations heritage on Bowen. So it would be worthwhile reaching out to them as well, because I was just thinking Squamish, but she was like, oh, it's Lil'watuk has a lot of information as well. So I don't know if we have any pre-existing relationship with them. So, you know, then that brings up that question as well. So, you know, it's a complicated issue. It's a slow issue. It takes a long time to do it well. And I think it's better to do it well than to try to do it quickly and try to get them to operate in our timeline.
So we just leave a placeholder in the strategic plan for it, that can get populated later.
Yeah. So, here we move on to, are we done with that?
Except that if we're identifying culturally modified trees and middens, then that we are pinpointing areas that are of particular concern and interest to the First Nations.
I doubt that culturally modified trees would make it onto the First Heritage Register for Bowen Island. So
We haven't been talking about that.
yeah, so it's down the road. I mean, we'll just go and look at some trees tomorrow and get a sense of where they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I
And
think
we
need
can
to be
hold that
mindful.
information as knowledge without making it part of the plan.
And we've been talking about having an informal inventory in our back pocket, and that would be in the Indigenous column of that back pocket inventory, so we know what's there. More information is better than less. I think I said that twice tonight.
Once we identify that this is a culturally modified tree, and it happens to be in the middle of the park where they're going to, you know, cut it down and turn it into the medical center or something like that. Once we've identified that as a culturally modified tree, then we've created a situation where, you know, do we have to do something about that in terms of somebody wanting to cut it down because they're going to build X,
That's a good question.
right? Right? And
So-
the same with the
There's always trade-offs, right?
Well,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so,
Well, ignorance
But
is
yeah,
always
no,
like
it's a very
but,
good, maybe, yeah, I see, like, maybe we don't wanna know.
But my hope is that,
No, I think-
we'll
No,
find
yeah,
out
yeah,
after
yeah.
This
the
group
next
does.
weekend.
It's gonna be,
Is that there will be an appropriate way to notify, at least to say, we're in the process of making a heritage plan. We are open to your input on this. We've gathered this data, but we will not be making it public without your permission. You know, to just make those kinds of
well, I think
statements.
that, from my opinion, that
Without
shows the
saying,
council.
first we have to do the thing, but I don't know how that would work. But I'm hoping that it's not just like we say nothing, but that there's a way that we can make sure that they're informed. And in the case of like what you're talking about, if we feel that one of those locations is a particular risk of being lost, that we can particularly say, we've noticed that this is at risk, we're concerned, but we realize that that's your heritage, and we won't want to step on your toes, kind of thing. Or, you know, however is the most appropriate way, but that there can be some kind of communication, and that's to be determined.
Totally Bowen.
Okay, so the Totally Bowen thing, this can be quite fast, I think, because at first, we were looking at a very collaborative thing using the Totally Bowen initiative in line with what we were doing, because what Totally Bowen is a thing that the Bowen Museum is working on that's about gathering up stories. So it was like, hey, that's the same thing sort of as what we're doing, so why don't we work together? And they're open to working together. However, I have to kind of go back again, because at first I was connecting directly with staff, and now they've kind of shifted gears, and I've been told that I need to communicate through Rob only, so the information that I've gotten from staff now has to kind of go back, and I have to reinitiate. So that's what's happening there.
Is that because, why is that?
I have no idea. That's a very good question. So there were a couple of projects that we were thinking would make a nice partnership, but it's just not as smooth as it once was when I could
Can
just
you
like
give us a very quick description of what those projects were?
So Totally Bowen, I've just described, it's for the gathering stories. The other one is and this was when we were looking at a December launch, so maybe now it doesn't make so much sense, but was the exhibits that they have coming up in December. And that one, what did they tell me? So they're December 2nd to 22nd, they're honoring the community leadership and service of Lois Mayers Carter with archival images, soft opening December 2nd, formal opening December 7th. They're gonna have Christmas decorations, okay, and then teddy bears on display. Visitors are invited to bring a toy and add it to the exhibit. Each bear will have a tag with a name and a statement about something that they like, and I believe children will be invited to take a bear for some time, but it doesn't say that in here. And then they're going to be doing a Wales Christmas reading accompanied with song, a Citizen of the Year award, and maybe children programming of hot cider or chocolate and movies. So at first we were thinking, let's pick their biggest event and have our launch maybe at the same time. And then they were also quite open to doing a co-event at the Legion lunches, where we have a table together where we talk about whatever co-things we're doing. So basically they were very open to any sort of thing, but we just have to kind of go back and redo all of that communication again. So for that, I just would want your direction on how to do it now that we've kind of shifted the launch, or we're thinking of shifting.
Can we do anything pre-launch? Like if there's some opportunities to start gathering stories and do stuff before we formally launch the strategic plan phase 2 process, can we still do that and not miss the opportunity? Because you're saying it's an opportunity because they're doing some big things. Or does it kind of miss the point? It's almost like launching before the launch, and then you water down the launch.
If you do it, you have to differentiate it from the launch sufficiently so that people aren't like, oh yeah, I already did that.
Yeah, maybe it confuses people.
Like if you did the survey or something.
I think at this point we just have to be grateful that the Museum and Archives is doing this project, because it will, in any case, draw to, you know, the concept of heritage and Bowen stories it'll make it more in people's minds and you know, and make prompt people to think about their Bowen stories and heritage, and raise the profile of heritage in general. And so I think that's to be embraced, and it's regrettable that we can't combine our efforts. With the timing is off, and now the
But they've been saying that the Totally Bowen thing, at first I thought they were gonna be doing it early, but now they're saying more like February, so,
Okay.
you know, that may line up, but I'm nervous now about saying anything, because I don't know what's gonna change. But because we have this website, and if you all agree, we could potentially offer for them to also have some, like they can help us moderate, or, you know, I don't know what, but they can contribute to this as well.
Yeah.
Presumably, it's easy for you to get the stuff off of the website, is it like there's a way for you to kind of
export
download
the
all of
data.
those?
It doesn't appear that that's a function that's inherent, but there are ways to do that with
Yeah.
programming.
Without doing it screenshot.
No, no.
Screenshot.
There are ways to pull data from websites
Yeah.
that are not there. A little Python programming.
Right, so, because that seems really important
Yeah,
in
so
terms of efficiency.
that should be something we can
Okay.
make a word cloud, that stuff's all easy.
I think,
Okay, so let me cover quickly, I did talk to a couple of other places, so like the Seniors Keeping Young and the people with the shadow puppets and blah, blah, blah. Generally, all the groups are happy to do whatever. I just need to tell them what we want. And I just can't say that yet, so that's where all those things are. So we have like contact people from all those things, and they're all very happy to do whatever. So if anyone has anything clear that you want to particularly achieve, we can do that. And one more thing, with Pauline, I talked to her about reviving one of the songs from her musical that she did in 2005 or 2006, something like Voices on Bowen, during Heritage Week.
Voices
She
on
was
Sound.
super happy to do that. Yeah, Voices on Sound. So she could revive the singing group and do that song and kind of have a full circle of one or two songs. So that's a thing that we can have happen during Heritage Week that I believe she would be willing to coordinate, but we ought to guarantee her some kind of slot at some kind of thing. So there's that. Okay, that was the Heritage Festival thing. It's February 17 to 23, and now I've gotten through my ABCD.
Are we ready for a resolution on timing?
Yeah. Do you have one?
I didn't propose the timing thing, so I would defer to the proposer.
The launch of, that we aim for the Heritage Week, which is February 17th to 23rd, 2020, as the culmination and launch of our Phase 1 activities.
Phase 2, yeah. To not to say our engagement process.
Our next steps. Which,
I mean, we're in phase 2 now, so it's
Yeah.
not the launch of phase 2.
So it's the
It's launch of the
engagement
engagement.
process, right?
Phase 2 engagement.
Good. Phase 2 engagement.
How about the committee agrees that phase 2 engagement for the Heritage Strategic Plan will take place during Heritage Week?
The launch of the,
No, the whole thing.
No, the engagement.
of the whole thing?
Yeah,
already launched.
during February 17th to the 23rd, 2020. I mean, that's like the key information. that
Should we
needs to
say
be-
around Heritage Week? Then we can do it before and after.
Okay, so the one question I have is there a reason why everything has to be condensed into 1 week?
Yeah.
Because that could
No,
limit
that's-
opportunities for engagement, because
Yeah.
it's all just crammed in, and then people will think, oh, you know, whoops, you blinked, it is over, and
A week
You
is
could say
too
the
short.
core of the engagement would be to
There
occur
you go.
then. That way,
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
have something where it's like, oh, this is too good to pass up, we can still do it without violating.
Yeah, 'cause I had somebody that I wanted to bring over to give a reading, and she might end up doing it at the beginning of February.
Yeah. Well, plus we need to pump it, so that's part of the engagement process,
Yeah.
so really February.
And Heritage Week often is Heritage Month, so the broader heritage engagement could be during that month. It doesn't have to be just in one
Yeah, I think
condensed
that
week.
makes sense.
But we launch in Heritage Week.
And what did you manage to get out of that?
Pretty much nothing. I got a timestamp on this so that it's easy to go back into the book and kind of decipher it. So I'm happy to sort of attempt it again so that we can vote on it. I'm sorry. It's just,
Well, how about the committee agrees that the core activities for phase 2,
Core engagement
core
activity.
engagement activities for phase 2 of the Heritage Strategic Plan will occur around Heritage Week.
Around
Heritage Week, and the dates again?
February 17th to 23rd, 2020. It's better to try to have it down rather
Yeah.
than having to go back.
That the committee agrees that the core activities of the
Or engagement.
core engagement. I think it
Core
just-
activities of core engagement activity. Just gotta delete the first core activity. Yeah.
Yeah. That the core engagement activities for the Heritage Strategic Plan will occur around Heritage Week, February 17th to 23rd, 2020.
Heritage Engagement Plan Phase 2.
No,
Phase 2.
So as part of the
it's
Heritage
a heritage
Strategic
plan phase 2, it's not heritage engagement plan phase
It's the Heritage Strategic Plan Phase 2 engagement is what it is.
Both strategic and engagement plans.
We all know what we mean.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, you just run out of battery.
What happened?
Oh, his computer just shut down.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Does
Wow.
that mean the video recording is done too?
You still
Is it
have
all
a little
connected?
red light on.
Very good question.
What?
Pardon me?
Red light's still on.
Is the same plug as that one? Just steal it.
No. The same.
Tragedy.
We're trying to shut down at
It
9.
is time to
We're adjourned. I guess we're adjourned.
That was the
Well,
All right,
Well,
let's do
better.
it on paper. What was how
Yeah.
with it? The commission?
Right, the commission agrees that the core engagement activities for the Heritage Strategic Plan Phase 2 occur around Heritage Week, February 17th to 23rd, 2020. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? I didn't get to write it down.
I just want to add, I am in favour, but I have to say that I won't be here in February. It's rather bad
I
timing,
should
but
think of tasks being.
You get out there and do it, all the rest of it, yeah.
Except for Peter, whose core activities shall occur.
right.
So what
Did somebody get that down enough? Because I only got half of it.
Yeah.
was the video
You did?
working?
You got it?
But I'm pretty sure that.
Yes.
There we are. It's on video.
Right, so I have a report from Sarah actually, which I would like to read to you because I plugged it first.
Sorry, before we go on, we've got that, and that's great, but what are the to-dos that we need to do in the short run to move this forward? One is that the commission members need to look at bowenisland.citizenlab.co and come up with proposed content that we send to Jennifer. Yes?
Yes, but also an overall structure of how you want it structured. And then within that structure, what is the content?
Okay, so you want feedback from individual committee members, and when do you want that by?
Well, since we have until February, you have some time. I mean, I assume that we have agreed that this is a desirable platform, that I should pursue that. So I don't need that immediately, which was the first thing.
You need to contact them to make sure we can renegotiate.
Yeah, I will do that
So that's
immediately.
first.
Okay.
And otherwise, we have to renegotiate.
Yeah, so if something happens there, I will
Yeah.
let.
Okay, so-
But I don't
So
anticipate.
Judy's point is, action point 1 is to confirm the extension with the website.
Citizen
development.
Lab.
And then 2 is for us to get feedback on the structure and proposed content. What are the other pieces?
What else do
There
we
was
need
the
to do?
questions to ask.
Oh, the survey.
Survey question?
Yeah.
Potential survey questions.
Now, wasn't there something in the workshop that we haven't done lots done in terms of he had been through that and he had a whole series of questions that he would have recommended and the
I don't
kinds of
remember
things?
that. Is anybody else?
No. Might be done.
In the workshop, he did say some things about that. It should be in the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, we could ask him. There was some things.
That's
But it was just
probably-
very general. It was like, you know, what's important to you about heritage? It was those kinds of questions.
Well, he said, I remember him saying that he'd done that a whole bunch of times and there were all sorts of questions. And he gave a particular example of when he was working with a group. I can't remember where it was now.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about though.
So that when you're setting up the survey, that there's ways of there's certain questions that you want, and there's certain ways of wording it, things like that, so, I'm sure he's done it 100 times.
Maybe Jennifer could check the
Yeah.
minutes
Oh,
or with
Well, we
Don
got just, yeah, just ask Don.
regarding,
Ask who?
Don Luxton.
Oh,
regarding best practices for survey questions on heritage. And that's probably enough in terms of work in the short run. So if we all did that piece by December 1st.
So I would encourage you to focus on the overall structure rather than the content.
Yeah.
Because you can get bogged down in the weeds and then decide you don't even want that piece at all. So if we have the structure set by December 1st, I think that'll put us in a good place.
So what do you need to know for structure? I mean, we need the
So
place,
like,
the
for
stories
example,
section.
you've already said we want to pre-populate the register,
Yeah.
right? Do you want for sure it on a map? What kind of data do you want in, when I pre-populate it, what data do you want in there? So what are we encouraging? Because whatever data we put there encourages names and comments. So like there, when you see Bowen Island Cenotaph,
Yeah.
I put in text there, but I can put whatever. And depending on what you put is the whole nature of what you're encouraging people to do. So if I put a bunch of dry data about the cenotaph, then people will do similarly, right? You're making, or if I put, here's a cool story from Maureen about when she went to cenotaph, then people will do similar, right? So it just, you know, what do you want there?
Could you send us a list of questions to help focus the feedback that you're getting? Because otherwise you're going to get a bunch of rambly emails, whereas if you send us a list of questions that you really need answers to, I think
Yeah,
it
that's
would
a
be
great
better.
idea. I think that's a good idea, because there's no way we can come up with these answers individually.
Yes, but
without you just having
in
another
the meantime,
10 opinions.
before you get the questions, I would encourage you to explore the website so that when I give the questions, you're not like,
Right.
oh, what is the what is she talking about? Just, you'll know what the parts are.
Okay.
And I agree, Rob. I think, Jennifer, you should set a reasonable deadline, or else it's going to fall off our consciousness. And then,
Well, what is a reasonable deadline for you all? Is it like a week or 2 weeks?
Yeah, maybe a couple of weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Be
2 weeks.
enough to respond and not too late to be in the Christmas rush, and that it's lost. And
Yeah.
we don't service again until
Yeah.
January.
After line
But
up-
that list won't
upload,
come till next
we're
week.
toast.
Yeah.
Because I won't be able to do it tomorrow.
Okay, so I think the last two things that we need to do is to agree a meeting date, and also I'd like to share this report from Sarah Haxby. So Sarah says, Applefest in October was a huge success. We are trying to find someone to help graft enough local heritage trees to have a sale of them to the community in the future. We are meeting regularly with Metro, and things are progressing well with maintenance requests as well as planning for the future. We are holding our AGM on November 24th, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We are planning a focus on steamships next year as the theme for an exhibit and some events. Plans are being scaled back and will be coordinated with the Bowen Museum and Archive. Discussions and planning in the works. We are closed for LUB as they changed the procession, as they changed the procession route, and we are not on the route anymore. November 24th will be the last of our heritage textile themed events celebrating the history of artisans in the cottages. The Begonia Pope Day will be a tea and coffee knitting on November 23rd, 6 to 8 p.m. in the evening before the AGM. We are in search of a new treasurer. We also need a new Applefest event coordinator and events organizer. And then she shared the poster for the AGM.
Oh, I haven't seen that anywhere yet.
It's on
No.
Facebook.
Is it
Picture those from there? Facebook events page.
Okay.
Is that an update for the stakeholder organizations? 6.1?
Yes.
Okay.
Should I put this anywhere, or?
If you send it to Sophie, she
Put it-
push
put it
it
in
out
the
to the
minutes.
municipality.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'll forward it to Sophie.
it's in there.
Yes, so thank you, Sarah, for that.
And then the last thing is the date of the next meeting, and I guess we need to meet in January? Or December, January?
I would make it as early January as
Yeah.
January 9th? You can't?
No.
And this will be subject to staff confirming space and no conflicts.
There won't be much in early January.
January 16th?
It's getting quite close to February,
Yeah.
not January 2nd.
No.
Now that will.
Apparently it's a holiday in Quebec, day after New Year's Day.
Shall we have a doodle poll? See what the options are?
Can people make the 16th?
I don't know, I don't have my calendar.
Otherwise, we've got to do December, late December, and I'm just not sure if that's fruitful. What do you think? What does everybody think? When should we have a meeting, December or January?
January.
January? Okay, let's do a doodle call. I mean, we want the second week of January, I think, so that we have sufficient time to do any work necessary. We ask Steph to do that.
So should be looking at, so the Monday is canceled,
Right.
so it would be Tuesday, 14th, or the 15th, or the 16th. And those of us here right now, everybody who's here right now can do the 16th, except Peter isn't sure.
Yeah, I'll respond.
What about the 15th?
Yep.
What about the 7th, 8th, and 9th? Not 9th.
7th, 8th are okay for me.
That's where I think we start running into potential for conflict with other committee meetings. So I think we can do both. Yeah.
Okay, so for those 2 weeks.
Yeah. January 6th to January 17th, where there might be space. And could we do 5 to 7? Is that doable?
It's possible for me.
Peter, is that?
It just means I miss a half a day of work rather than a couple hours at the end to come over on a Thursday or whatever. But
So,
I could consider it.
Okay.
So we'll ask for 5 to 7, 7 to 9,
Okay.
and see where it shakes out.
Maybe we need 4 hours, 5 to 9.
5 to 9, basically.
It's possible. Given the-
They want
It's
5
worth
to
it,
7,
yeah.
8, 7. So will you
That's
let Steph,
possible, please.
will you let Steph know? Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I gotta run, I can get started.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Valuable
Good
contribution
day.
as always.
And thank you, Jennifer, for all the work you've done. That's really, and the deal you got on the site as well, I think credit is definitely.
Thanks for your support, for everything.
Looking forward to playing with it.